How do we know what we know about turfgrass science? Welcome to Turfgrass Epistemology. Good morning. Welcome to Turfgrass Epistemology. My name is Travis Shaddix. In this episode, we're going to be talking about a video from an email that I got on soil testing from a company called the Andersons. So look forward to that later today or later in this episode. Thank you all for being here. This is Turfgrass Epistemology. How do we know what we know about turfgrass science? We're continuing to explore that question and hopefully find some answers by looking at the scientific literature. Sometimes we have fun just goofing around. And today is one of those days. We're going to have a tinfoil turfgrass today. I was not going to do this show today. I actually was scheduled to be in Pennsylvania today. And I guess a couple of weeks ago or whenever it was, I realized that I didn't schedule my flight until Tuesday morning, which is tomorrow morning. So I'm here today. And so we're going to do a impromptu tinfoil turfgrass today. Oh yeah, thanks Niels for reminding me, hit the like button. Everybody watching this is a member, so we all should definitely hit the like button if you're members of the show. If you're listening to this on a podcast, we actually do a video of this as well. And then I just put the audio on podcast, but only the members can watch this. And we're going to actually show some data today in this episode that I showed at the science meeting this last week. And if you want to see those data, you'll have to be a member. I'll try my best to explain it and describe it for those listening. But if you want to watch it and, see whatever I'm going over, then you'll need to be a member of the channel. Just go to YouTube and select join. On that note, some people have been joining the Facebook group, and that's great. I appreciate that. Just be mindful that if you are a member and you're trying to join, it might take a time or two to apply because I have some moderators that help me, and they can only go by what the current member list is that I give them, and I'm really bad about giving them an updated members list. So it might take a little time to get you in. It might take you a time or two to apply before you get in, but if you're a member, we'll get you in. It's just my incompetency that limits our Facebook group. So I appreciate everybody trying to participate in the group. It's been getting pretty good here lately. So a little bit about me. I was at a science meeting this last week at the Agronomy Society of America, Crop Science Society of America in Salt Lake City. And before I went out there, I threw my back out playing with my kids in Lexington. So I took some medication and got on a plane and dragged myself to Salt Lake City, kind of grimacing each time I took a step. So hopefully I'm getting better. And then this morning, I, like a goofball, I was lifting up a flat of sodas and kind of popped it again. So I'm saying that to say that I'm sitting here in a little bit of pain, but I have a meeting this week in Pennsylvania, and I'm going one way or the other. I have to get in a wheelchair to get on the airplane if I have to, but I'll be in Pennsylvania tomorrow. And if I can walk, if I can kind of get around, I'll be at the social meeting tomorrow in State College, Pennsylvania. I guess the conference is having a get-together tomorrow night at some bar or restaurant at 6:00, I think it is, at State College. So I'll try my best to be there. I will be there. I just don't know if I'll actually be at that bar. I'll try. And then on Wednesday morning, I'll be giving a talk to a room full of superintendents, I guess. I think it's mostly superintendents. And I believe Wednesday is soil testing. And I'll be going over some interesting things on Wednesday that are unique to Pennsylvania, as well as just soil testing, concepts in general. And historically, I've kind of given those talks that are pretty rubber stamp, sort of just regular talks. But the last year or two, I've been giving that talk with a little less concern for hurting people's feelings. And I gave a talk like this down in Naples about a year or two ago, and it got a little hot in the room. I'll just be frank. So if you're in Pennsylvania and you want to come see some fun talking about soils and turf, be sure to go to the Penn State Turfgrass Conference this Wednesday. I think that's November 19th, 2025. And then I'll be doing another talk the next morning, November 20th, on nutrient best management practices. And then I'll be back in Lexington. And then for the most part, I'm finished traveling until after Christmas. So that's what is going on in my week. And I will look forward to that talk. I hope you all can make it. Some people from the show can make it, or if anywhere near Pennsylvania, Buffalo, New York, wherever, just come Ohio, West Virginia, just make a short little drive up there. And I can assure you, it will be a talk that you have not heard before. I'll say that much. And you probably won't forget it. So it won't be your run-of-the-mill cookie cutter talk that you've probably sat through before, listened to a bunch of talking heads at a conference. It won't be that type of talk. Assuming I can actually walk. I might be up on the stage in a wheelchair, but I will be there. All right, enough about that. Let's get on with Tinfoil Turfgrass. Okay, this episode of Tinfoil Turfgrass is about soil testing, and I don't really buy products online. I definitely don't buy fertilizer and stuff online, but somehow I got on a mailing list, which is actually quite good for my show. I get a lot of content from the mailing list. I get emails from all sorts of companies. I even get hard mail, like from one company in particular. And I wanted to go over this email real quick to kind of set up the show. The email I get is a standard email from the Andersons. And it says, fall is for soil testing. I just got this a day or two ago, or last week, I think it was. I don't remember. And it says, fall is for soil testing, the big, big letters, and has a soil probe in the ground. So right off the bat, as a soil scientist, I am very, very interested in this for a couple of reasons. One, it's about soil testing, which is kind of what I do for a living. And then two, it says fall is for soil testing, which I know is complete nonsense. Okay, just be frank. Okay, you cannot identify a set time or a set month or day that is always going to be the best for soil testing. Okay, that's not possible to do. You can perhaps do it at your location if you have enough historical data. You can do it based upon your nutrient applications and your soils and your climate. You can definitely do that. If you have, taken soil tests every month or every other month, or you have historical data and it shows that there's a decline in nutrients at this time of year every year, then that would be when you'd want to take it. Or if your nutrients for some reason increase at a certain time of year, and you see that consistent year over year on that month, then that'd be a time of the year that you don't want to soil test, because you would want to soil test at a time of the year where the nutrients are at their lowest, so that it gives you the greatest opportunity to determine if the nutrients are going to be sufficient for the upcoming year. So if there's a deficiency, you'll have the greatest opportunity of seeing that when you sample when the nutrients are at their lowest. As opposed to if you sample at their highest and you go, well, I'm okay, everything's fine. And then come to find out 2 months later, it declines by half and you're deficient in potassium for some reason, or phosphorus for some reason declines, then you would be deficient and you wouldn't know it because you took a soil test at the wrong time. So what I wanted to show was, first, this email, which is fantastic. But in addition to that, I wanted to show this publication. There's several publications on soil test timing in depth. This particular publication was in 1967 by Childs and Jenks. Any soil scientist has probably read this paper a dozen times. But the title is The Effect of Time and Depth on Sampling Upon Soil Test Results. I think this was an agronomy journal. Yeah, agronomy journal. So what these authors did was they were sampling a pasture, turfgrass pasture, and they did it over each month. And they sampled these, I think it was like 20 acre plots, big plots. And they were sampling those soils over time to see how the nutrients changed over time. Now, this particular location, they only applied nitrogen at 1 pound in the spring, and they only applied phosphorus at 1.5 pounds each spring. They didn't apply any potassium at all. And I want to show you in here how the phosphorus and potassium changes over time. Now, this is the 0 to 15 centimeter depth, which is what I generally recommend because many of the soil test calibrations have been conducted at that 6-inch soil depth or 15 centimeter soil depth. I don't particularly care what depth you choose. You can choose 2 centimeters, 1 centimeter, 100 centimeters. It makes no difference to me. What matters is that depth correlated with a turf response. So if you take it at 100 centimeters and you go, hey, I got enough, well, it's irrelevant because that depth is not consistent with the depth that was used to determine the correlation. In other words, to interpret the values, we need to use the same depth as what was done during the research. And so generally, the 0 to 15 centimeter depth is pretty consistent in the literature. You might find 10 centimeter depths here and there as well, but just keep in mind the soil test lab is going to say take it at 6 inches or take it at 4 inches or 2 inches or whatever the case is. And hopefully they've done the calibration at that depth. Otherwise, then their recommendations are wrong. Okay. But anyway, here we go. Phosphorus, and you'll see on the x-axis, you see September, October, November each month, and on the y-axis, you see phosphorus availability in parts per million. And you can see in November, which is what the Andersons are saying the fall is the time to sample. Right here on the screen, it says fall is for soil testing. Well, in this particular case, November was when phosphorus was at its highest at 40 parts per million. And then it continues to decline until June and July, and then goes back up in August and September. So it's going up in the fall and then declining throughout the late winter and spring, and then increasing again the next fall. So you wouldn't want to sample in the fall like the Andersons is recommending, because that's when it's at its highest. And so if the nutrient declines slow enough and you see a deficiency 4 or 5 months later, you're not going to know it. Let's look at potassium. When there was no fertilizer, there was no potassium fertilizer applied at all, and you see a very similar movement in the numbers, where you see these various soils. They have these lines are from different locations, and the lines are moving in a very similar pattern, where the highest is in, again, November and December, and then it slowly declines all the way to June and July, and then it goes back up in August and September the following year. And that's with a nutrient they didn't even apply as a fertilizer. Now, this is not to say that you should not sample in the fall and you should only sample in April and May. That's not to say that. That was what happened in this particular location, where they were grazing cattle or they were harvesting hay or whatever from these pastures. Well, what's happening in the spring, late winter and spring and then early summer, is the grass is growing. And the soil is being depleted from potassium from when no nutrients were applied, and even from phosphorus when phosphorus was applied. These authors make a claim and a statement that this reduction could not be due only to plants, because the reduction was greater than what would be anticipated from plant uptake. It was probably due to a number of other things, including microbial activity. That's what these authors argue in their paper. I think it's not a very good argument, and the way they frame the argument's not very good. But nevertheless, there was a decline from the fall into the spring into the summer, and then an increase the following fall. So in your case, when you're dealing with turfgrass, especially if you're removing the clippings, like on a putting green, then you might see something similar if you're not fertilizing every week. You might see something similar where you're removing tissue, and then in the winter you stop removing. The fall and the fall and the winter, for warm season grasses, it might slow down. You're not removing as much tissue. You're not removing as much potassium. You're not removing as much phosphorus and so forth. So I'm all saying that to say this: the fall might be the best time for soil testing, but it might not be. You need to know what's going on in your location with rainfall and the parent material of your soil, the growth of the grass, your expectations, the last time you fertilized, all those things, and get a good idea as to when the nutrients are likely to be at their lowest in your location based upon a number of variables. And then if you have historic data to confirm, yeah, I fertilized 4 months ago. That's the longest period that I'm ever going to go without fertilizing. I might want to sample now because the nutrients might be at their lowest. The grass has been growing and depleting all the nutrients, so let me sample now. At least have some logic behind your decision-making process. And if you have data to support that, then you'd want to support that, you'd want to follow the data if you have historical data on that. So the fall may or may not be the best time for testing. I don't sample in the fall because I know I have a research project going on. I know in my project out there, the last time I fertilized was in October, and I'm not going to fertilize again until I think it's either April or May. So I'm going to sample probably in February or March because that's the longest period I have between for fertilization. And there's going to be some rainfall. There's going to be some snow that will help deplete the nutrients down, whatever. And the likelihood of the nutrients being lowest are probably greatest right before my spring application of fertilizer. Not in the fall, 3 weeks after or 4 weeks after I just applied fertilizer. Okay. Now let's continue with this email. Fall is for soil testing. Okay, we went past that. It says, when it comes to building healthy, vibrant lawns, the secret isn't just what you feed it. It's knowing what your soil actually needs. Well, the secret is not just what you feed it. The secret to a growing healthy lawn is understanding the risk pyramid of water, the influence of light and temperature on seasonal growth of the turf, injury, like keeping your mower blade sharp, reducing disease risk, reducing insect damage, things like that. Soil is, in most cases, the least important, or the least influential, I should say. But they're going to sell fertilizer, so they have to talk about soil tests. That's where a soil test comes in. And while you can't test your soil while you can test your soil any time of the year, fall is one of the best times to do it. And I just made an argument, while that fall may be a good time, it may be the worst time to do it, especially if you're applying fertilizer to cool season grasses and you're applying, say, a half a pound or a pound of nitrogen in September, or a half a pound and a pound in October, and the grass is growing, and that nitrogen, in many cases, is coming along with phosphorus or potassium or something else in that fertilizer. Unfortunately, a lot of times we're applying things other than just nitrogen. And when you're applying all those nutrients, you're going to see nutrients in the soil spike. So why would you be soil testing then? So I would argue that the Andersons don't know what they're talking about. And then they have a couple of bullet points. It says, get a baseline before winter. It's okay to get a baseline on soil tests, I guess. I never have in my lawns. I don't really care. I'm going to know what a nutrient deficiency is. If I have a nutrient deficiency by looking at my turfgrass, I'm going to know that. If your lawn's not acceptable, you're going to know that. You might not know exactly what nutrient it is, but you're going to know that it's unacceptable. The likelihood that it's unacceptable as a result of a nutrient deficiency like phosphorus or potassium is extremely low. It could be that. The chances are it's probably water or a light and temperature effect or injury due to insects or diseases or your lawnmower, what blades or whatever the case is. It's probably not soil, but it could be. So if you want to get a baseline of what your nutrient status is in your soil, I mean, fine. I don't. But if that's what you want to do, feel free. I just don't want people to go out and take action based upon a soil test when we don't even know what the numbers often mean. It says, plan smart for spring. You can tailor your early spring feeding to exactly what your soil needs, saving you time, money, and potential frustration. You will not save money by soil testing if you're going to be using soil testings to apply fertilizer. There is no evidence to support that, and I'm going to show that when we show the video. There's ample evidence to support the argument that if you're going to soil test, you're going to spend more money. And that's not necessarily a bad thing if you're getting a concomitant return on that money spent in terms of your turf response and so forth. But we haven't seen that. And we're seeing ample evidence to the contrary, which I'm going to show the members today. For the first time, we're going to be looking at data today. And if you want to see this, you'll have to be a member. And then it says you can track your progress, comparing your results year over year, show how your soil health is improving, and if your fertilizer strategy is paying off. This right here, track your progress, sounds good in theory, even to some professional turf managers. This sounds good in theory. But this is chasing numbers. This is literally the definition of chasing numbers, comparing soil test results over time. The only time that I would find that to be useful or evidence-based would be if you've had a problem if you've had a condition in the past that you're trying to keep track of and to minimize the risk of it occurring again in the future, then I might want to look at numbers and see if I'm still in the risk zone for, say, phosphorus deficiency or potassium deficiency or something, or even elevated phosphorus levels that would result in increased weed populations and so forth, or increased potassium that might result in increased disease risk and so forth. So I would track my progress over time if I've had a problem and I'm trying to keep track of it. That's about it. Otherwise, you're just chasing numbers, and we don't chase numbers in the world of science, evidence-based nutrient management. And then you have a soil test kit probe they're selling, and you notice the kit here. This is the fraudulent kit that swindles people out of a lot of money. I'm going to go over this today on the video, and when you get down here, it says video. What secrets is your soil hiding? And they're going to have a little video link, and that's it. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to go to the video. If I can figure out how to get this open. So that's a little bit about the email. So what happened was I got that email, and then I clicked on the video, and I started watching this video, which is what we're going to do right now.
Beginner or pro, one of the best ways to ensure your lawn thrives is by keeping your soil healthy. And one of the best ways to track your soil's health is with a soil test. It's a great tool to have in your lawn care toolbox, and it's never been easier. Soil testing is the process of analyzing your soil's composition from macronutrients to micronutrients to soil pH. Essentially, it's like a checkup for your lawn soil, helping you to understand what's going on beneath the surface. There are two primary components of your soil test: soil pH and nutrient components. Soil pH indicates how acidic or alkaline your soil is, and that can affect nutrient availability to your plants.
So we all know, especially the senior viewers of this show, know my position on soil pH and turfgrass response. The gentleman, by the way, I think this guy's name is Kurt. I like his behavior. I like his personality. It's much better than my personality. Having said that, what Kurt's confused with, or is just delusional, is that soil pH is going to somehow be useful to us in any meaningful sense in terms of nutrient uptake. I don't care about nutrient solubility in the soil. I don't care about how soil pH influences nutrient solubility. That's a scam, and it's a sort of a clever way of convincing people that they need to take a soil test and move the soil pH by applying lime or applying sulfur. That's all irrelevant to me as a soil scientist. Make sure I'm clear on when I say that. It's irrelevant to me how soil pH influences nutrient solubility in turfgrass science. I don't care. I don't care about that. What's relevant to me is how soil pH influences the plant uptake of nutrients. Because in cases where, let's take potassium, in cases where the soil pH might result in a reduced solubility of potassium in the soil, it's that same pH that the plant uptake of potassium is greatest. Because the plant can and does solubilize nutrients that would be otherwise insoluble to the plant. It solubilizes it by exuding hydrogen ions and or organic chelates like phytosiderophores right around the rhizosphere of the root. And that interaction between the root and the soil right at the tip results in uptake of nutrients where they would otherwise be insoluble based upon a soil pH test. That's the case with potassium and magnesium. It's the case of many nutrients, iron for sure. There's really no meaningful amount of iron soluble in the solution at any given time. It's going to be oxidized almost instantaneously. But yet the plants are out there growing with iron in them. How is that possible? Because the root exudes compounds that solubilize it just at the root tip. Well, just at the root tip isn't measured in this soil test. This is from the bulk soil. Okay. So when you see someone throw up a pH scale and showing all the nutrient solubilities based upon pH, the one useful, thing you can pull from that is that you can almost assure yourself that they're completely full of BS. They don't know what they're talking about. pH can have a massive influence on plant growth and turfgrass growth and performance, but you can't just look at a soil pH test and go, it's 5.5, I got to move it up to 6.5 because some so-and-so said so. You can't do that. If your turf grass is not performing well at that pH, then moving it one way or the other might be beneficial. And in cases where we've done that, that's very good evidence and very good reason to do so. And I've shown the picture from Dr. Beth Gertald many times where she was growing centipede grass at 4.0 and she moved the pH to 5.0 and it was fine. That's an extremely good reason to move pH up. But what is not a good reason to move the pH up is because the nutrient solubility is going to be greater at 5 than at 4. Unless you know the exact nutrient that's deficient, you can do it in that case. Like, for example, if you're at 7 and you're phosphorus deficient, then there's pretty good evidence to indicate that if you moved it down to 6, you might have a little bit more phosphorus uptake at 6 than at 7. So those are good reasons, but please don't get deluded into thinking you have to take a soil test and look at the soil pH and you got a 7.5. My pH is 7.5. I got to go out there and throw out elemental sulfur. Well, why? What does the turf look like? Is there any indication in the turf grass that would give you a good reason to lower the soil pH? If your turf is a 9 or an 8, it looks great, and it's at 7.5, then who cares? Just go on about your day. If you've struggled over time, if you have issues with pesticide efficacy and other factors because it's 7.5, then pursue that and do it with a good reason. But moving it down might actually result in more problems than it cures. Okay. Let me look at there's a lot of questions so far. Let me make sure. I'm sorry to kind of break the video in half here, but just want to make sure I'm not missing any questions from the members. Brandon9715 says, I just wanted to say I found your channel last month and I greatly appreciate the information. You are saving me a lot of money I was previously wasting for my lawn. Yeah, welcome to the channel, Brandon. That's my son's name, by the way, Brandon. So it's a great name. Yeah, welcome. And unfortunately, I hear that story from many, many, many people. And if you're a member, Brandon, well, obviously you are, you're here. You can go on the Facebook page if you're a Facebook person. You can see many, many stories of that exact same thing where people have been scammed and swindled out of their money, buying all sorts of magic dirt waters and throwing it on their lawn, thinking they're going to cure problems from these swindlers on YouTube and all around. And they feel silly afterwards. Well, don't feel silly. It is what it is. But now you're here, and hopefully we can help keep you guided on the path to truth. And then Shawnee says, isn't the Anderson soil test using the My Soil test, aka the ion exchange method? Yes, and we're going to get to that right now.
And then nutrient levels. This measures the presence of key nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and the trace elements that are all essential for plant growth. Soil testing is typically done by collecting soil samples from a few different parts of the lawn and sending them off to a lab for analysis. Don't worry, this process is quick, easy, and relatively inexpensive, and it'll set you up for success. So you may be wondering, why can't I just throw down a basic fertilizer and call it a day? Well,
let me back up here just one step.
And relatively inexpensive, and it'll.
Hang on.
This process is quick, easy, and relatively inexpensive.
It is quick and easy. I'll give you that much. But inexpensive is relative. It ain't inexpensive. To take the test is probably not that expensive, $30 or whatever. But following these, I'm going to show you a pretty good argument that following this sort of recommendation is not going to be inexpensive. It's going to be very expensive. And, I get this question. I've got this question, honestly, probably 5 times just this last 2 weeks. And that is, I guess I would love to see how to basically have me show how a phosphorus or potassium deficiency looks like. What does it look like? And I'm going to show, okay, do I have time to do that today? I'll show you one little clip of a phosphorus deficiency if I can remember to do that today. I'm going to be showing that tomorrow on Wednesday at the Penn State Turf Conference. I'll be showing that on Wednesday. Maybe it's Thursday's presentation. I can't remember. But I got that question too at the ASA meeting last week. Well, is this practical or not? Following a visual deficiency and just applying nitrogen and just applying phosphorus and potassium when you see deficiencies, is that practical? Can people do that? Well, I do it. And just because, the average person might not know how to determine that doesn't mean it can't be done. For example, you didn't know what mole cricket damage looked like until you were taught that. You don't know what brown patch looked like until you were shown that. You don't know what dollar spot looked like until you were shown that. You didn't know what earthworm castings looked like until you were explained that. So the average person might not be able to diagnose a phosphorus or potassium deficiency, but it doesn't mean we can't teach them. And so Nino's question is very valid. Can I do that? We need to do that. There's only a handful of people that probably have that skill to do that. Photos are an okay way, but I guess the best thing I would do, or the best description I would do, is just, you could probably go to an extension bulletin and look for nutrient deficiency documents. And those are pretty good at explaining how nutrient deficiencies look like. Any plant physiology book, probably one on the back of my shelf here, probably has the descriptions and deficiency symptoms of what to look for. With phosphorus, it's pretty simple. It's not going to grow that fast. It's probably going to grow a little lower. As a yard or a putting green, it's going to be marbled. It's not going to be like one spot like dollar spot would be. It's going to be a little less clear. The edges aren't going to be completely, delineated. Same thing with potassium deficiencies. You're not going to see straight lines anywhere. It's going to kind of be a general area that's sort of marbled. But with phosphorus, it's going to be lower growing. It's going to be oftentimes a little purplish in color, a little darker hue than the other turf grasses, the non-phosphorus deficient turf grass near it. I'm going to show you that in a minute. And then with potassium, you're just going to see yellow chlorotic tissue moving in from the margins of the leaf towards the middle or the rib of the leaf on the older leaves first. So it's pretty easy to diagnose once you've seen it. It's just like anything else. It's pretty easy to diagnose once you've been taught it. But I apparently we've failed in academia to explain this effectively or show this effectively. And so I'm working on some way, Ninos, to do this in person, to physically show people what this looks like. But it's not as easy as, here's dollar spot, because dollar spot's going to show up just like a neon sign. It's a little more challenging than that, but I am working on that. I appreciate the comment. I get that a lot. Back to the video.
And it'll set you up for success. So you may be wondering, why can't I just throw down a basic fertilizer and call it a day? Well, there are many reasons.
I can do that. That's exactly what I can do. I can throw down urea or throw down ammonium sulfate and call it a day. I've been doing it for 20 years. I've never applied phosphorus or potassium in Florida and Oklahoma and Kentucky. So I'm not wondering why I can't do that. I'm wondering why someone would want to do something other than that, to be frank. Unless you have a phosphorus or potassium deficiency or you have some unacceptable turf grass, there's no point. There's just no point in doing it. And I'm going to show you some data. I'm going to show the members here. Hey, if you're a member, hang on, because I'm going to show you some data at the end here that no one's seen before, except for this last week, I guess, at the science meeting. And the members are the only ones going to be able to see this. I'm going to explain it, but it's the research that the members are funding. And so I'm going to show them what's going on with some of these results. But yes, you can just throw down a little nitrogen and be perfectly fine in many, many cases, including Missouri, including Kentucky, including Florida. And we'll see what's going to happen, but it's going to be coming up with Indiana now and Alabama now. I don't know what those results are going to be, but they're going to be doing the same thing there. And we're going to see what happens.
Why a soil test is important for your lawn. Number one, soil tests can identify nutrient deficiencies. If your lawn has...
Soil tests can identify some risk in nutrient deficiencies, but not the soil test that he's going to use.
As a nutrient deficiency, chances are you probably already suspect that something's wrong with your soil because you have yellow turf, or really any color turf other than deep green is an indicator. So your soil test should confirm that suspicion and tell you which nutrients are lacking.
No. That's not how it works, Kurt. Okay, let me back up. That's not how it works at all. Let me rewind this, make sure everybody understands what he said. Did anybody catch the flaw, the fallacy, the name of it? You guys remember, you guys have been watching this for a while. There was a glaring flaw right there. That's great. It was a great example of a very well-known fallacy. I'll play it again and give you guys a chance to think about it.
Our turf, other than deep green, is an
Other than
indicator.
Other than deep green is an indicator. Okay. Well, this very well could be a nutrient deficiency. This very well could be sulfur deficiency. It's very possible. Sulfur deficiency often looks like what you see on the screen here. You have this yellowing area, large areas of yellow turf where the sulfur may be deficient. Okay. That's definitely not a phosphorus deficiency, I can tell you that. But how do you know it's a nutrient deficiency, Kurt? It could be, but it could be a water-related issue. It could be a disease-related issue. Nematodes sometimes look like that. Could be a number of things. Could be a number of pests. I don't know what billbug disease or billbug damage looks like, but there's fall armyworm can really do damage and make your lawns look bad like that. So just because your lawn is not green does not mean it's a nutrient deficiency. Now, for a fertilizer salesman, they want you to think it's a nutrient deficiency. Clearly. But just because it's yellow, I would start with the checklist. Step 1, check your water. Check your water. I don't care if you just checked it yesterday. Turn it on and see what the pattern is. See if there's a head out. See if it's stuck. See if it's shooting straight in the air and a head popped off. Check your water. If you check that it's on and it's covering areas effectively, then check if you're putting too much water on. Is the zone running 5 times more than it should have? Then check to see if it's dry. Get down there with a spade or a shovel or a probe and actually check those areas to see if they're dry, because just because the water's running doesn't mean the water's actually penetrating the soil. That may not be the case. It may be hydrophobic. You may have a hydrophobic localized dry spot there. So check your water first. Then you can look at the seasons, the changes in light and temperature, see if the shade is affecting the sunlight and so forth. Then you can check abiotic injuries like your mower blades and all traffic and all these other things, and biotic injuries like the diseases and so forth. Then go to soils. After all that, the chances are you're going to find the problem long before you ever need to take a soil test. That's very, very likely. Okay. Let me read the question. Brandon 9715 says, it's crazy how much misinformation is out there. I tried to do my due diligence by searching online, but that all proved to be false. Yeah, I'm telling you, Brandon, don't feel bad. For the rest of my life, I will live with the guilt that I failed in academia and education, because when I got on YouTube, I didn't know that it was this bad either. I had no idea. I thought I was doing everything right in academia. I thought I was really making a difference. And then I get on YouTube and one video goes on and goes, 1 million people watch it. Well, 1 million people watch some massive amount of misinformation. And here I am talking at a conference to 200 people. Yes, those 200 people are going to get more detailed information. They may be company owners that then can influence 500 lawns, 1,000 lawns, whatever the case is. It's a different, scale there. But 1 million views on a YouTube video, you can't compete with that when you're in academia. You have to go where they are. And that's what I'm doing now. And so, yeah, you're right, Brandon. But don't feel bad. Let me feel bad. I'll burden the guilt, because we clearly failed. There's so much misinformation out there. It makes me sick. So Joe Calla asks, this is a very good question. What are the chances you actually see a phosphorus or potassium deficiency in your yard? I'm on tons of lawn care Facebook groups and I've never seen purple grass. Exactly. That's my point, Joe. Exactly. You made my point very well. And I got asked this question at the ASA. Well, how practical it is? We're not even seeing phosphorus deficiencies, so it's very practical to not apply it. We're not seeing potassium deficiencies, so it's very, very practical to just apply nitrogen unless you see it. I can tell you right now, guys and gals, unless you're like in coastal South Carolina or Florida, or you're in these high sand soils, you will never see a potassium deficiency in your lifetime. It's not going to happen. It is just so rare. And maybe a California green or something like that, you have to have a lot of sand and no retention and no potassium bearing minerals in there to have a potassium deficiency. So you're probably never going to see a potassium deficiency. Phosphorus is a little different. It's possible to see a phosphorus deficiency on many like sand-based systems. It's almost impossible to see it in Florida because Florida, although we have high sands in Florida, the soils there are very phosphatic, very high in phosphorus. They mine phosphorus in Florida. A lot of the world's phosphorus deposits are in Florida. You're not going to see phosphorus deficiencies on Florida and native soils. Maybe on putting greens, it's possible. You're going to see phosphorus deficiencies in different soils that are, high in aluminum and iron and just naturally low in phosphorus. So Alabama has low phosphorus soils. Okay, so, it's possible to see a phosphorus deficiency, but it's, again, Joe, it's a very good question. You're almost never going to see it. Never. And then people will say, well, why don't I just apply phosphorus and potassium? And say, why would I ever want to wait to see a phosphorus deficiency? I'm just going to apply it just in case so I don't ever see a phosphorus deficiency. Well, that's fine. As long as you don't care about weed populations, and you don't care about applying herbicides, because it's very, very clear in the literature that increased rates of phosphorus are very strongly related to increased populations of weeds like Poa annua, like dandelions. Same thing with potassium. Increased amounts of phosphorus and potassium, when you don't need it, are very likely resulting in increased risk of increased risk of weeds in the case of phosphorus and potassium, and increased risk of disease in the case of potassium. So there's a very good reason why you want to wait. Just remove it. You're growing bent grass and you're struggling with POA. Meanwhile, your phosphorus is already high and you're keeping applying phosphorus on these bent grass greens. And then you're complaining about the POA creeping in on you. Stop applying the phosphorus. The phosphorus is increasing your risk of Poa annua invasion on bent grass putting greens. So, yeah. You're not going to see it very frequently, Joe, and people should just omit it until you do. In other words, don't apply it unless you have a good reason. That's the whole point. Not Chucking a Truck says, saw 3 phosphorus issues this year. Physical symptoms then confirmed with a soil test. Still rare in my experience. So how can you argue that? He saw some physical signs of phosphorus deficiency. He took a soil test, confirmed it was a phosphorus deficiency, and applied it. That's exactly what you should do. I couldn't write it. I couldn't write a phosphorus best management practice any better than that. You see something, confirm it with the tissue test you could with phosphorus or with a soil test. Indeed, this is what it is. Apply some to alleviate the problem. And I guarantee you, it wasn't much phosphorus that resulted in a alleviation of that deficiency. It doesn't take much. 1/4 pound of phosphorus, not much. 1/2 pound at max. You don't need much. And it's the same with every nutrient. I got to continue. I'll be here forever. Good questions. Keep them coming. I'll get in there and answer some more questions as we go.
So your soil test should confirm that suspicion and tell you which nutrients are lacking.
So did anybody catch the flaw when I mentioned it earlier? That's a confirmation bias. You don't take a test to confirm, what you suspect or whatever. I mean, just like I just said, you see a deficiency and you take a test and confirm. You should know what a deficiency looks like. You know what a phosphorus deficiency looks like. You really don't need to take a soil test in that case. But if you could, and it would confirm in that case. But you don't want to take a soil test to confirm what you think might be the case if you don't know what it looks like. I think this might be an iron deficiency. You're going to see an iron deficiency on every soil test. And you say, in other words, that's confirmation bias. So I might have been a little unclear with my explanation on that. But yeah, you just want to know what they look like. And if that's the case, honestly, you don't even need to take a soil test. I don't even know why people take soil tests, to be frank. There's really not much point in it. We have almost no confidence in it. There's some with sulfur, there's some with phosphorus a little bit, and it's a little bit of potassium, but they're almost completely useless in my mind. You can just look at the turf grass and it'll tell you what it needs. Regardless, fine, whatever, do it. But just be careful that you're not confirming something that was that you're wanting to be true. Yeah, you need to be a little bit more wise than that. All right, we continue. Sorry, I'm probably confusing people.
If a nutrient deficiency is found, you can adjust your lawn care program by applying the right fertilizers and soil amendments.
You can, but not with the test he's going to show.
Number 2, a soil test can help prevent over-fertilization.
There is absolutely strong evidence that is dead false. Okay, there's taking a soil test to prevent over-fertilization. Okay, that's what he said. Take a soil test to prevent over-fertilization. This paper right here is called Nutrient Use and Management Practice on the United States Golf Courses, published in Hort Technology in 2023, just a few years ago. Okay, if you'll come down here to table 13 or 15, when is it? 13, right here, table 13. Table 13 is the association between management practice used with the intent of reducing reliance on applied nutrients. Okay. Relationship between that and the applied nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium on United States golf courses. So the first one, management practice used with the intent, is fertilize based on soil test results. So this is the population of the survey that fertilized with the intent of reducing the reliance upon fertilizer. And we see if they did soil test, it's a yes, and if they did not soil test, it's a no. If they soil tested, they applied 4.4 tons of nitrogen per year. If they did not, they applied 2.75 tons. So what Kurt just said about you can reduce over-fertilization is not true with nitrogen. With phosphorus, when they soil tested with the intent of reducing reliance on phosphorus, they applied 0.6 tons per year. And when they didn't soil test, they applied 0.4 tons per year. So what Kurt said is not true with phosphorus either. We go to potassium. If you fertilized with the intent of reducing reliance on potassium, you applied 3 tons per year. And if you did not soil test at all, you applied 1.7 tons per year. So this is what I mean when I say Mr. Kurt doesn't know what he's talking about, because there is very, very strong evidence to show that if you're soil testing, you are applying more nutrients than if you did not fertilize. So this idea that you're going to soil test to prevent over-fertilization or to reduce fertilizer applications is complete and utter BS. And this has been the case since 2005. I don't know if they measured it. Let me take that back. I think the first time they measured that was in 2014, where they're actually looking at people who soil tested versus people who did not soil test and how much fertilizer they applied. So it might have been 2014. They started doing these surveys in 2005, but I don't think they actually measured that metric. Regardless, there is not an ounce of evidence to indicate that if you soil test, you should be applying fewer nutrients. You should be applying fewer nutrients. That's true. But that's not the way soil tests work. Soil tests, or at least the recommendations based upon soil tests and the interpretation of soil tests, are greatly flawed. And this is one reason why I say soil tests are mostly useless. If you're going to soil test and apply more nutrients as a result of soil testing, then just don't soil test at all and just apply the nutrients. What's the point? If you just want to apply more nutrients, and I have a lot of superintendent friends who say, I want to apply more nutrients, well, then just apply more nutrients. Why are you soil testing? You're going to soil test and apply it anyway. So just apply it anyway. The soil test isn't going to provide you any guidance, because if the guidance is from taking a soil test, you should be applying more potassium. That soil test is probably wrong. There's very, very little evidence that the soil test potassium level for turfgrass is valid or accurate. Very little. I mean, the 40, 50 part per million mark is around the ballpark for disease occurrence or whatever. Parts per million, maybe like 3 at 15 centimeters or 6 inches. There's a little bit there. But then they're going to tell you should be applying X amount. That requires a calibration. I don't know any potassium calibration on any turf grasses. None. So I wouldn't be applying any potassium, a specific amount of potassium based upon a soil test. You can kind of get an idea Well, my risk is getting a little high because my potassium's, say, 30 parts per million, and it should be 50 parts per million. I'm on POA annual greens. Maybe I should bump it up a little bit. You can kind of get an idea, but I don't know how much to apply. That requires a calibration. I have no idea how much to apply. You go back to the video.
While it may be tempting to over-fertilize to boost grass growth and color, it's actually doing more harm than good.
Boo! Good. That's right. Just like I said. Yes, it is probably doing more harm than good. He's probably going to talk about the environment or money or whatever. That's fine if that's what floats your boat. But I'm talking about the actual performance of your turf grass with increased disease or increased weed population as a result of over-applying phosphorus or potassium.
Too much fertilizer can lead to excessive growth, harm to the environment, fertilizer burn, and in my opinion, worst of all, lawn disease. Yeah.
Well, it's not just your opinion. I don't know you, Kurt. Maybe you're greatest disease specialist on earth. I don't know. Maybe your opinion is important. I don't know, but that's a fact. That is a consensus. Increased potassium applications beyond what's necessary is going to increase your risk of disease. Microdocium, dollar spot, warm season, cool season, you name it. It's going to increase your risk of disease.
Too much fertilizer actually weakens the plant and encourages disease. You always want the right amount, no more, no less. And a soil test is going to tell you exactly how much of each nutrient the soil already has, so you can avoid over-fertilizing and save money in the long run.
No, that ain't going to happen. That ain't going to happen, Kurt. Sorry, brother. So let's look at this. Save money in the long run. Not gonna do it. You ever watch the Saturday Night Live skit when Dana Carvey was doing George Bush, when he kept overemphasizing the not gonna do it, not gonna do it. No, that's exactly what's going to happen with using soil tests to reduce your costs. It ain't going to happen. Okay, I presented this information last week at the Agronomy Society of America, and what this shows is the fertilizer cost based upon which soil test you're using. And what I have on the screen here is the results from the 2025 study in Florida. And you have on here the x-axis, we have the 5 different soil test philosophies, and we have the non-treated, which I guess is you're not doing anything, no nitrogen, no nothing. And then you're applying nutrients based upon visual deficiency. That would be a standard. You're just applying just nitrogen. And you'll see here the cost was $147 per hectare per year. And then we have MLSN, which is the exact same in this particular location. It was $147 per hectare per year. We just applied nitrogen using MLSN because these values in this Florida soil were greater than the MLSN critical limits. And then you have base count and saturation, $313 per hectare per year if you follow base count on saturation. And then you have this thing called IEM. I can't click on the... Hang on. Yeah, there we go. I can click on it. I thought I couldn't click on it without doing this. Okay. So then you have this right here, IEM, ion exchange membrane. This is the exact test that Kurt's using in his video. Look at the cost per hectare per year, $780 per hectare per year if you follow that soil test that he has on the video, compared to $147 per hectare per year. Now, what you don't know, and I can go back and show it, is that the quality was identical. The yield was identical. The NDVI, the color was identical. There was nothing greater than the visual nitrogen-only plots in Florida. Let's look at Kentucky. I did this in 2024 and in 2025, and you see the exact same results, give or take, and that is nothing was less expensive than applying just nitrogen alone. Quality was never greater than just applying nitrogen alone. But look at MLSN, the ion exchange membrane, and the base count saturation. You look at $600 per hectare per year, all the way up to $1,000 per hectare per year using base count saturation. Look at MLSN. In this particular case, MLSN was $600 per hectare per year compared to $147 per hectare per year using just nitrogen alone. Why was MLSN so high? Because the pH in Kentucky was less than 5.5, which is the minimum for the MLSN. So I had to apply a lot of lime in that case to bring the pH up. And then you'll notice the very next year, 2025, the MLSN and the nitrogen, the visual were the exact same because at that point the pH was greater than the MLSN critical limit for pH, and I was just applying nitrogen. But you'll still notice the ion exchange membrane, which is his test in 2025, was $360 per hectare per year compared to $147. So you're spending twice as much money in Florida and in Kentucky to get the exact same results. And when you go to Missouri, you see the same thing. Visual was $147 per hectare per year. MLSN was $147 per hectare per year because they're just applying nitrogen. And then you see base kind saturation, which was $400. In the ion exchange membrane, which is not, it's not a, this is kind of what he used. That's exactly what he used. This is the exact test that Kurt's talking about. The IEM, ion exchange membrane test, $967 per hectare per year if you follow that test. So don't give me any nonsense about following that test is going to save you money in the long run. It's complete and utter nonsense. It's BS. It's a swindle is what it is. It's a scam. I don't know how else to say it. This is not true. Following the recommendations on that soil test are going to cost you a lot more money, and you're not going to see any concomitant increase in turf quality or color or yield by following that test compared to just following the nitrogen only recommendation until you see a deficiency. It's not going to happen. At least it hasn't happened yet. Okay.
Number 3, a soil test can help you determine if you need to adjust your soil pH. Soil pH is a crucial factor in determining how well your grass can access nutrients. If it's too high, alkaline, or too low, acidic, it's going to struggle to absorb the nutrients that it needs.
So this is what I'm saying. This is just simply not true. I mean, the plant will, okay, let me back up. I'm a little too hot right now. I need to calm down. I guess strictly speaking, that's true. I mean, pH is going to have an influence on that at some point, but within 5 to 8, pH 5 to 8, the plant is going to do that on its own. It has an ability to uptake nutrients where the nutrient would otherwise be insoluble in the soil. So don't go down these roads of trying to adjust soil pH because you think the nutrients need to be more soluble because it's a pH of 7 or it's a pH of 5 or a pH of 7.5 or whatever the case is. 7.5 might be the pH that your turf grass grows best at. And moving it down to 6.5 might cause you more problems. It might result in different populations of weed growth. It might result in different toxicities of nutrients or uptake of other nutrients. Who knows what's going to happen? But what I do know is if your turf grass is growing to your level, your acceptable limits, your growth, your color, whatever it is, then whatever the pH is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. So don't worry about it. If it is growing poorly, your turf grass is growing poorly, is pH a problem? It might be. That's when we would want to start looking into it, diagnosing what the problem actually is. But just throwing some stuff out there, especially lime, might actually be causing more problems than it's curing.
For instance, if your soil is too acidic, you might benefit by applying Nutrilime. If it's too alkaline, you might benefit by applying elemental sulfur.
Can you imagine having a bunch of homeowners out here? These are the Andersons. They're promoting this for homeowners. Having a bunch of homeowners out there throwing out elemental sulfur on their lawns. You know how many dead lawns we're going to have out there? Most homeowners don't know how to apply just basic fertilizer. You're going to throw out elemental sulfur? In Kentucky, I bet we have less than 5% of our lawns in Kentucky are actually irrigated. You're going to throw out a bunch of elemental sulfur on non-irrigated turf grass? You're going to fry half the lawns in Lexington. So that's what I'm saying. You're playing around with fire. Liming, it's a little different. You might end up with some nutrient deficiencies as a result of lime, but you're probably not going to kill it unless you're having like calcium oxide or hydrated lime. That might kill it. But elemental sulfur, you're creating sulfuric acid. That is a professional product. In my opinion, I would not be putting that in homeowners' hands. You are a pro. If you're a turf grass manager, if you're a lawn care operator, or you're a superintendent, you are a pro. By definition, you're getting paid to do this. So in your hands, I have confidence. But these guys are marketing this to homeowners. That's very dangerous.
This will give you a clear idea of what your soil needs for your lawn to thrive. Number 4, a soil test saves time and money.
I just showed you. It is not going to save you any money. It is definitely not going to do that. Especially his test. It is not going to happen.
By knowing exactly what your lawn needs, you can avoid the guesswork of trial and error. Soil testing helps you target the specific problems in your lawn, leading to more efficient lawn care.
It should. I agree. It definitely should. But that's not how the reality of soil testing works. That's how it should work. I agree. But we are a long way off from that.
This results in less wasted effort, fewer unnecessary products, and a healthier lawn with less maintenance.
Okay. Really good claims. Fewer products and a healthier lawn. Let's go back to the data set that I just showed and look at those metrics. I got to back up here because those metrics are a little bit further back on this presentation. Okay, now, healthier lawn. Let's look at turf quality. Exact same study. All these soil tests, turfgrass quality, non-treated, base kind saturation, MLSN, ion exchange, visual quality. In Florida, nothing was greater than just straight nitrogen for the whole year 2025. In Kentucky, nothing was greater than straight nitrogen in 2024 or in 2025. Zip. Non-treated was there. It's a good indication that the study is actually being conducted correctly when you see a non-treated lower than the treated plots. But when the turfgrass was treated with nutrients, nothing was greater than nitrogen alone. When you look at Missouri, again, nothing's greater than nitrogen alone. When you look at density, I'm going to skip past density, but it's basically the same. It's the same thing. Nothing's greater than visual alone. Let me get to yield. Yield. This is a good indication of actually what's going on with plant growth, obviously. And nothing's greater than the nitrogen yield, the yield of turfgrass as a result of just nitrogen alone in Florida. Nothing was greater in terms of the treated plots than nitrogen alone in Kentucky in 2024 or in Kentucky in 2025. Nothing's greater than just nitrogen alone in terms of yield in Missouri in the first year. Nothing. Now, but he mentioned applied nutrients. You're gonna use less nutrients, or you're only apply the exact right amount of nutrients. Okay. When you look at that, this is like night and day. Look at the amount of nutrients you have to use following his scam test, the ion exchange membrane, the capsule test. Almost 300 kilograms per hectare per year compared to 110 from the visual deficiency method and MLSN in Florida. You're applying 3 times as many nutrients following that scam test. You're applying 250 kilograms following base kind saturation. In Kentucky, the first year, we had the MLSN, you had to apply we had a bunch of lime on the first year of MLSN. So we're applying 800 kilograms using MLSN, 1,200 kilograms following base kind saturation, and almost 300 using his scam test. Meanwhile, the visual deficiency, 110 kilograms per hectare per year. That's just nitrogen. That's all it was the first year. Second year, same thing. Ion exchange membranes using about 200, and MLSN and visuals using about 110. They're using the ion exchange membrane and base kind saturation are using more nutrients. In Missouri, same thing. Nothing's using equivalent to visual except for MLSN in years where the pH is greater than 5.5. The ion exchange membrane test, which is what he's using, is always not just significantly greater statistically, but biologically speaking, you're using 2, 3 times, sometimes 6 or 7 times the amount of nutrients necessary to achieve the same exact quality results. You're spending more money, using more nutrients to get the same exact result as just applying nitrogen alone. So it's just completely false what's being said here.
Number 5, improve soil health. Over time, giving your soil what the lawn needs results in healthy, thriving turf, which in turn creates healthier soil by adding organic matter from clippings and supporting a thriving ecosystem of microbes that break down organic matter and release nutrients, thus resulting in healthier turf.
Yeah, so this actually is true, but it's not necessary to apply those products that he's recommending. There's a study being done. I'm really, really interested about this study. It's being conducted, from my understanding, at Iowa State, and it's looking at the carbon sequestration or the carbon accumulation in soils from turf grasses under various nutrient management practices. And I'm really, really interested in that. I had a chance to speak to the professor this last week. And I mean, I'm thinking like trying to ask to go up and see the facility. I mean, that's really interesting to me because we've done a little bit of work on that in the past. And generally what we'll find is that turfgrass itself will pump basically carbon into the soil on its own with just a little bit of nitrogen. The question is, throwing all these other products in there, are you going to have some other benefit in soil in terms of soil health or soil soluble organic carbon or something like that by adding all these other products? It's unlikely, but it's possible. But the turfgrass itself will do that on its own.
First, you need to get your kit and register it online at andersonshomeandgarden.com/soil test. You'll create an account and then enter your kit registration number, which can be found here.
So this is the same test as predictive nutrient solution. Same thing as MySoil, same thing as Yard Mastery. And I checked to confirm that this was the case. I actually got the return mailing envelope from this Anderson's test, and it goes to predictive nutrient solution. So it's the same scam, swindle test sold by all the other con artists and scam artists and swindlers on YouTube selling this test.
Select the sample
You'll
type,
see it.
add the date of when your soil was added to the sample jar, then select the approximate square footage of your sampling area. Here are some tips for collecting a good sample.
So you'll see it right
Before
here.
taking your soil sample, it's best to evaluate your testing area and divide it into sections if needed. This will depend on the size of your lawn or if different areas of the lawn have vastly different conditions. It's important to collect a representative soil sample. If multiple sample areas are needed, we recommend a separate test for each area. For each test, we recommend using a clean soil probe or hand trowel. Collect soil from 5 to 7 separate locations within your desired testing area. The soil should be collected from the surface down to a depth of 6 inches, and it's very important to make it the same 6 inches for every sample.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I mean, again, I couldn't give two flips what depth you take it from, honestly. I mean, there's this all argument, we should take it from 10 centimeters, we take it from 15 centimeters or 4 centimeters or whatever the case is. As long as you're taking it from the exact same depth every time, and that depth has a correlation with actual turf response to those nutrients at that depth, then I'm fine with it. But in order to get that correlation, someone had to go out and do that study. Someone had to do it at 10 centimeters, 15 centimeters, 5 centimeters, whatever it is, 2 inches, 4 inches, 6 inches. Somebody had to do that. And so in my case, I did sulfur correlation, and I did it at 15 centimeters, at 6 inches. So if you go out and you take a soil test at 4 inches or 2 inches, and you say, hey, this is my soil sulfur level, I'm going to tell you in return, I can't interpret that value. I don't know what it is. You have to take it from 6 inches. That way you and I are speaking the same language. So take it from whatever depth you want. Just understand the scholars in this area are restricted by the depth that you took it. We have to know what depth that is in order to have any idea. Not just because the depth changes the mass, like if it's in parts per million, you go to pounds per acre, but because there's stratification in those nutrients, it's going to change as you go deeper. If you take a 6-inch soil sample and let's say it says 20 parts per million, and then that's what I would say would be minimum for some nutrient, and then you took it at 3 inches and it's 20 parts per million. Well, you might be deficient, even though it says 20 parts per million, because you took it from the top. Because if I took it the whole 6 inches, it might be lower. It's going to be diluted down deeper. The actual 6-inch soil sample might have been 6 parts per million or 7 parts per million because you took it from a deeper depth. In other words, my 6-inch soil sample that I did calibration at 20, the top was probably 30 or 35 or 40 or some other number. I don't know what it was. So we have to take the same soil sample depth every time, and we have to know what the calibration or correlation depth was when we did the test. That's what's critical. But if you don't know any of that, and to be frank, most soil sample labs, soil test facilities, they don't know either, to be frank. They have to go look in the literature, and they're probably not going to do that. If you don't know what it is, bare minimum, just do the same depth every time. And don't give the probe to your assistant and say, go take it at 6 inches, and they go do it. Don't do that. Don't do that. Make sure the probe has a stop on it that physically restricts the probe from penetrating the soil below 6 inches. So that way, any Tom, Dick, or Harry can go out there and just stick the probe in the ground. It stops at 6 inches. You can pull it out, and it's going to be exactly 6 inches. You got to figure out some way to do that.
If the soil's too hard for the soil probe to be inserted at all, wet the soil first and then insert the soil probe. Combine the collected soil in a large bag or bucket and mix thoroughly, breaking up any large chunks. Samples should be free of any large plant material and other debris. Using the provided scoop, collect 1 level scoop of the mixed soil and add it to the jar containing DI water. And
so now you see this is the My Soil test, the predictive nutrient solution test, where you do the water and you dump it in the soil cup. It's a 100% scam. Unfortunately, there's been so many people scammed from this. It's a swindle is what it is. They'll give you a nice little pretty little result in paperback, but as I showed you on the screen, this is the result. You are going to spend more money and you are going to apply a lot more nutrients following this method, the IEM method, ion exchange membrane. There is no doubt that is going to happen. Look at the cost, guys. The cost of this is $800 per hectare compared to $150 if you just applied nitrogen. It's critical that we understand the importance of this. It's absolute madness that this continues. Don't continue to be a victim. If you lost money to it, I'm empathetic. I really feel sorry, but don't continue to go down it. Say, you know what? I got it. I'm not going to do that anymore. Now what do? Send your sample to an accredited lab like Waters Lab or A&L Lab. Go to your extension office and you send the sample into your local extension office at your state university. Those are going to be valid accredited labs that will give you, the interpretation might be off, but at least give you a valid number back. And if you need help interpreting it, then we can help you with that. The soil lab may not be able to do that. Maybe they did it on alfalfa or corn or something, but we can help interpret those values if you need help with interpreting those values. But send it to an accredited lab. Don't send it to these con artists that are scamming you out of your money and giving you something in return that you think is valuable, but in fact is costing you a ton of money, and you're not going to get in return any benefit in terms of the turf.
Nutrient absorbing capsule. Tightly secure lid. Next, you will mail your sample to the lab. Place your jar into the provided envelope, seal it, and place in your mailbox or at any USPS location. All that's left is getting your results and applying your recommended products. Your results will include 13 plant available.
It's the same exact thing as Soil Savvy or whatever it's called, My Soil.
Nutrient levels, and the Anderson's fertilizer recommendations, application rates, and links to those products. Now you're ready to have a healthy and green lawn. For more tips and tricks and to shop our products, visit
Okay, that's it. So I'm really disappointed in the Andersons, which are a very good company. They've been around for ages and ages, and they have a very good reputation. And if you want to be better, Andersons, you can do the exact same thing, but do it with a valid test. I think it's called soiltest.com. Hang on, what is that? Let me, I think it's, what is the name of that thing? Soiltest.com? No. Soil testing? I can't ever remember the name of that thing. Soil kit, maybe? Soil kit, yeah, soilkit.com. Just go to Soil Kit Andersons and use their home mail process. It's for your customers. I'm talking to the Andersons. For your customers, they still stay at home. They still have a kit that goes to their house. They still mail it in the mail, and they still get the results back. It's identical to the fraudulent test. But with Soil Kit, they're actually using an accredited lab. I don't know if they use Waters or I don't know who they're using, but they're using an accredited lab using a malic 3 extract. And we can then help customers in a evidence-based manner. Your customers would be better off following those recommendations. Now, we'll see what happens, because I can assure you that it'd be a long time before that happens. And just so you know, Anderson, because I know the hesitation is going to be, well, we're going to lose money. We're not going to sell as much product. Soil Kit also has a function in there that generates a recommendation of your product. Okay, so if you're worried about, well, we're not going to get much sales, we're not going to sell as much 18-212 or whatever the case is, Soil Kit still has that functionality built into their system, or it would generate a recommendation of selling your product. Okay. So it can be done in an evidence-based manner. You don't have to follow the scam artists and the swindlers by using this ion exchange membrane, which has 0.0 evidence to support it. And we're showing evidence now at the Agronomy Society of America just last week, and I'm going to show this again tomorrow in Pennsylvania, and again, I think Wednesday in Pennsylvania, and Thursday in Pennsylvania, and I'm probably going to show it in Nebraska in February as well. We're finding evidence that following those recommendations are going to result in a lot more nutrients applied for a lot more money and zero return in increase of turfgrass quality or yield or color. So that's the reality you're dealing with, Anderson. You're swindling your customers, and it can be done. You can provide value to your customers, still sell product by using an evidence-based soil test, not the one that you're selling. Okay? Let me go to the questions. Yeah, Ashani's telling Ninos. Yeah, there's an older video I did where I showed some phosphorus deficiencies and potassium deficiencies. Let me see if I have that up. I said I would do it if I've remembered. Let me see if I can find that real quick. I know I have it. I just don't know if it's on this particular slide. Not on that one. I happen to have it up earlier, the phosphorus and potassium deficiencies, because I was going to show it next week. So let me see if I can track it down. I'll show it before I go. Okay, well, let me just do this. I don't know if I can show the potassium deficiency one, but I can definitely show a pH related issue. And I can show a phosphorus deficiency if I can, if I can get there. I'm getting there, guys. Hold on. Okay, so on the screen now, I'm showing one really, really good reason why you'd want to adjust pH. This is centipede grass in Auburn, Alabama, and at 4.0, you see it's brown. Looks dead. At 5.0 pH, it's fine. 6.0, it's fine. It's a really good reason to move pH. Okay, that's one example. Let me look and see if I can find the phosphorus deficiency one here. Here's a phosphorus deficiency. See how the grass around this P on the putting green, it's like a darker color. If you get up close to it, you're going to see these purplish hues and grayish tones. This is a phosphorus deficiency. And then this Dr. Soldat went out probably with a drop spreader, and he just drop spread probably potassium or probably concentrated superphosphate, or sprayed it out of a boom, the letter P, and it shows up. This is a phosphorus deficiency on bent grass, where you'll see this sort of marbling or off-color turf grass that is exhibited as slower growth, a darker color, and as soon as you apply a little phosphorus, it pops right through it. That's a phosphorus deficiency. Here's a phosphorus deficiency on, again, bent grass. We see 4 parts per million, 5 parts per million, 3 parts per million. You see this sort of darker, grayish, low-growing, purplish-looking grass. And then you move it up to 6 and 7 parts per million, and you see this perfectly green turf grass. That's a phosphorus deficiency, okay? I think that's all I have on that. I don't think I showed a potassium deficiency. No. Sulfur deficiency. Here's a sulfur deficiency. If you want to see a sulfur deficiency, here's a sulfur deficiency. If I can get it on the screen. Hang on. Getting there. Okay, here's a sulfur deficiency. The top, we see potassium sulfate. At the bottom, we see potassium chloride. So the difference is I applied sulfur. And you see just a general chlorotic tissue compared to green tissue, normal green grass. And the next slide, you see a real severe sulfur deficiency where all this yellow grass around this green grass was applied, had nitrogen applied to it. Everything you see here had the same amount of N. 1 pound of N was applied. The only difference was these little green squares had either potassium sulfate, calcium sulfate, or magnesium sulfate applied. And so this is a sulfur deficiency. If you want to know what a sulfur deficiency looks like, that's what it looks like. It's a nitrogen deficiency is what a sulfur deficiency is. A nitrogen deficiency is what it is. Okay, guys. So that's a little bit about deficiencies. I need to do more of that. I know. I've been asked to do that I don't know how many times. Here, Shani says, honestly, I like the simplicity of spraying a phosphorus for phosphorus, a P for phosphorus, or a K for potassium, and then waiting a couple of days to see their Turfgrass response. And that's exactly what happened on Dr. Soda. And I've done the same thing when I was in the academic life. I had little 1-gallon spray jugs, and it had just a solution of just sulfate or just potassium or just phosphorus or whatever it was. And the other ion in the solution was a non-turf response ion. And so I would just spray that out in a letter. Like for iron, I would just spray out the letter F, on a turfgrass that had just iron sulfate in it, or iron whatever in it, iron glucoheptanate in it. And with P, you just spray out the letter P with concentrated superphosphate or phosphoric acid in it. With K, you just spray out with KCl. You just spray out the letter K with KCl. It has to be KCl. It can't be potassium sulfate. And just wait and see. I've never seen a K. Done that I don't know how many times. I've never seen the letter K show up. It's extremely, extremely rare to see a letter K show up from potassium chloride. It's equally common to see the letter K show up from potassium sulfate because you're actually probably seeing a sulfur deficiency, not a potassium deficiency. Yeah, the lawn care minimalist says he's seen phosphorus deficiency roughly a dozen times on Facebook. I believe it. I mean, phosphorus deficiencies can happen. I mean, potassium deficiencies can happen. You're on Facebook. Some of these groups have like 50,000 people in it. The odds are a couple people might have a phosphorus deficiency or potassium deficiency. It's possible. It's just very, very unlikely. But phosphorus is probably more likely than potassium in terms of seeing a deficiency in that area. Yeah. All right, guys. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to let you go. I'm going to be gone tomorrow. I'll be in Pennsylvania tomorrow. And then I will be back next week, and we'll be going over some more disease work next week. Probably next Monday and Tuesday, we'll be going over some papers on diseases. If you've sent me a request to go over a video or an article, I do have it, but I'll just say this. Please don't be upset if I don't get to it. Sometimes I have so many I just forget, and they get on the list and I lose them. Don't hesitate. It doesn't bother me at all to just send me another reminder about a video or a paper that you want me to go over. If I haven't gone over it yet and you've asked me, it's not because I'm intentionally avoiding it. I've just forgotten about it, and I lost track of it or whatever. I just haven't got to it yet. Okay, guys. So feel free to send me anything that you'd like me to go over. Until then, I'll see you in a week or so. Have a great day, and I'll see you for those in Pennsylvania. I'll see you tomorrow at the Pennsylvania Turf Conference. See ya.